Bureaucracy is not a support structure, it's a filtering system, an interface designed to recognize only what fits. It does not perceive the individual, only registration. You are valid only to the extent that the system can read you. You exist administratively, or you don't exist at all. No paperwork, no personhood. What looks like inconvenience is structural erasure. You speak and the system doesn't reply because it doesn't hear anything outside protocol. Every form, certificate, confirmation, and queue is a checkpoint in an automated gatekeeping sequence. Your task isn't to express, it's to format. A deviation in language, an attempt to explain context, or any irregularity in presentation is flagged and rejected. Not for its content, for its non-compliance. The clerk doesn't need to be cruel. They're not executing will, they're executing code. They are a node in a distributed cognition system that's optimized for one thing: control through normalization. The interface doesn't punish you, it excludes you, quietly, repeatedly, without emotional signal. You get nothing, not even conflict, just denied. The legal system runs on the same logic. Law doesn't search for meaning, it defines permissible behavior. Harm is not criterion, disruption is. You can cause no damage and still be punished. You can inflict harm and be fine as long as you followed procedure. The legal schema isn't built to recognize you as a subject, it recognizes roles. If you don't fit, it doesn't adapt. It removes. Now zoom out. You're not just interfacing with a bureaucracy. You're inside a machine designed to neutralize the unstable, the unscripted, the alive. The spontaneity of real presence, hesitation, fear, contradiction, irregularity is treated as a glitch, not a signal. Doubt is not processed, emotion not parsed, pain is not routed. There is no manual for your panic. The system has a form. If you don't match, you are not processed. The subjective sense of absurdity people feel when trying to interact with these structures is not irrational. It's a cognitive immune response. You are experiencing what it means to be alive in a space that only tolerates the formatted dead. And it isn't theoretical. In 1961, psychologist Stanley Milgram ran a now infamous experiment. Participants were told to administer electric shocks to a person in another room. They weren't forced, they were simply instructed. It's necessary for the experiment. The person receiving the shocks wasn't real, but the participants didn't know that. They heard screams, pleas, silence. Still, 65% pushed the button all the way to the maximum. Why? Because the command came from authority. Because they were given a script, a white coat, a reason. Because they didn't have to decide, they just had to comply. Milgram proved that humans will enact cruelty if the interface is clean enough. If responsibility is externalized and ritual is maintained, people will execute almost anything, as long as it's structured, justified, and looks like a task. This isn't a quirk of psychology. It's the core mechanic of systems. Bureaucracy and law are not corrupted forms of order. They are designs for scalable obedience. They remove friction. They eliminate doubt. They transform violence into process. No whips, no blood, just rejection letters, expiration dates, unread applications, and protocol-based denials. There is no one to argue with. There is no decision maker, just a system executing itself. Now place Milgram's logic inside an immigration office. The agent isn't malicious. The interviewer isn't cruel. The staff doesn't need to hate you. They don't have to. The system took care of that part. The button becomes a denial letter, a rejected application, a deportation order. Unfortunately, you do not meet the criteria. Please reapply with the correct documents. There is nothing we can do. They don't question whether you're safe. They don't ask how you got here, what you left behind, or what would happen if they sent you back like defective merchandise. That's not part of the form. They follow the procedure because that's the job. The form is sacred. The human isn't. You try to speak about fear, war, trauma, language, displacement, but none of it fits the schema. You are told this is not the place for personal stories. You're not being erased for what you did. You're being erased because you don't align with the database. They press the button. You vanish from the system. Your fear of the system, whether aimed at managers, bureaucrats, or just doing their job officials, is valid. It is a form of dissent. It is your refusal to return to the experiment, a refusal to be processed, categorized, adjusted, a refusal to press the button or to be on the receiving end of it. This is not trauma response or dysfunction. It is conscious resistance and data integrity. You are not malfunctioning when you feel dread entering a government office. You are recognizing the structure for what it is, a Milgram interface stripped of its electrodes and wrapped in institutional decorum. Bureaucracy, law, and institutional power have converged into a single machine, a compliance engine that filters out the unformatted. You pass if you match. If not, you are sidelined, rerouted, ignored, tranquilized, or punished, not for harm, but for disrupting the script. To exit this logic is not an act of rebellion, it's a return to being, a state beyond evaluation, beyond formatting, beyond obedience. This doesn't mean the system disappears or lets you go. It means it stops defining your ontology. You still file forms, show documents, pass filters, but you no longer confuse that with existence. You navigate the interface, but you do not identify with the role. That's the fracture, when the system continues, but your belief in its terms doesn't. You're no longer asking it to recognize you. You're simply moving through it like the wind through architecture, not to be seen, not to be validated, not to belong. The system doesn't collapse just because you see through it, but it starts rotting faster. I don't believe in peaceful coexistence with it. I believe in its decay. And it's probably already happening. The absurdity, the dehumanization, the sheer uselessness of it all are becoming harder to ignore. People aren't just tired, they are no longer buying the premise. When enough minds stop treating the schema as real, it doesn't need to be fought. It unravels. The system cannot survive without belief in its necessity. Predictably, the defense mechanisms kick in.
Without the system, it'll be chaos. People will steal, lie, and kill. We need control. What if everyone becomes a criminal?
But notice what that reveals. These aren't fears about others. They're admissions that the system never built trust, only suppression, that without threats and surveillance no one is expected to behave, and that human is seen as dangerous by default. And here's the irony. The system, despite all its rules, has never stopped violence, exploitation, or abuse. It just learned to legalize some of it, outsource the rest, and hide behind paperwork. So when people say, without it, everything would fall apart, they are not defending order. They're confessing that this is all we've ever had, fear dressed up as structure. And no, I am not offering a new system to replace the old. It's naming what's rotting. I'm watching it collapse under the weight of its own irrelevance. What comes after isn't an institution, it's a shift in architecture, from obedience to resonance, from format to presence, from threat based coordination to mutual signal recognition. That can't be legislated, it can't be enforced. It can only emerge when the noise dies down enough for something else to be heard.